The air in the waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. Fluorescent lights hummed above us, bright enough to expose every flaw. On the walls, on our faces, maybe even in our relationship. My name's Nina, 29. I work as a paralegal, which means I understand evidence and how easily it ruins you once it's visible. Luke sat beside me, scrolling through his phone, calm as ever. 31, economics teacher, patient, predictable, the kind of man who believes every problem can be solved with logic, except love never read that manual. We'd been back together for 6 months after a short break. Our version of a pause button that never really reset. I was checking my messages when movement caught my eye. Across the room, a man waiting alone. Eli, the friend who'd stayed over during that break. He was wearing a navy tie. The navy tie, the one I'd bought him that night. Luke followed my gaze. You know him? My mouth opened. No sound. Just the hum of the lights, the tick of the clock, and the slow collapse of a secret I'd buried too close to daylight. That's when I learned there's no such thing as a harmless coincidence. Not when you've built a life out of hiding. I cheated on my boyfriend during our break when a friend stayed over. I never said a word, until that tie said it for me. Our relationship had become a checklist. Work, dinner, silence, sleep. The kind of calm that hides exhaustion instead of peace. We argued about time, goals, communication, the usual things people mistake for growth. One night, after another pointless fight, he said, "Maybe we need a break." I thought he meant a pause, not permission. So I gave him what he asked for. Space, distance. Enough silence for both of us to breathe or to forget. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the firm, came home to a flat that smelled like takeout and loneliness. That's when Eli showed up. An old friend from college in town for a few weeks needed a couch. I said yes without thinking. He was kind in the way people are when they have nothing to prove. He listened, he made coffee, he asked how I'd been, and actually meant it. And one night, kindness blurred into something else. It wasn't planned. It wasn't romantic. Just two people trying to feel less invisible. When Luke called weeks later, said he missed me, I erased that night like a typo. Something small, correctable, unimportant. But love doesn't forgive what it doesn't know. That's what I counted on. Getting back together didn't happen all at once. It started with polite texts that turned into long calls, which turned into dinner, the kind you both swear is just to talk. Then came the late-night apologies, the half-laughs over shared memories, the hesitant jokes that tiptoe around old wounds. He was gentler this time, quieter, careful with words, like someone who'd been scared of losing me and was still afraid it might happen again. I should have told him then, but I didn't, because honesty would have meant reopening a wound we were pretending had already scarred. It felt safer to pretend nothing happened, to let the silence do the cleanup. So I deleted Eli's number, burned the photos from that night, literally, watched the smoke curl out the window like the last trace of a mistake I'd convinced myself didn't matter. Luke moved back in, his toothbrush beside mine again, his shoes by the door, his quiet humming in the kitchen while he made coffee, the kind of domestic rhythm that almost makes you forget the offbeat beneath it. We started saving for a trip. Somewhere warm, somewhere new, somewhere that could trick us into thinking we'd left the past behind with our winter coats. We became functional again. Two people pretending forgiveness had happened on both sides. One evening, he complimented my new mug. I smiled, said it was from an old friend. He didn't ask which one. That's how we lived, rebuilding carefully, but without foundation. Every laugh was measured, every kiss, proof that we were trying, every plan, a patch over something too fragile to touch. We were rebuilding, yes, but it wasn't a home anymore. It was a museum of our former selves, full of artifacts we called memories, when really they were exhibits of who we used to be, visitors only, no permanent residents. And late at night, when the house finally went quiet, I could almost hear it. The faint hum of a truth decomposing beneath the floorboards. I used to believe secrets rot only if you tell them. But silence is a kind of mold, too. The night before the doctor's appointment, Luke asked if I'd come with him. Nothing serious, just a routine checkup. I said yes without thinking. It felt ordinary. Safe. That morning, while ironing his shirt, I noticed his tie rack, neat, color-coded, perfectly arranged like everything else in his life. Burgundy for meetings, gray for parent-teacher conferences, navy for days he wanted to look composed. That's when it hit me. The navy. The one with the tiny stitched pattern. Familiar in a way it shouldn't have been. Because I'd bought that same tie for Eli. He'd laughed when he opened the box, said it was professional without being boring. I'd told him it matched his eyes. He'd said it made him feel like he belonged somewhere. The memory stung like static. Small, invisible, impossible to shake off. I folded the shirt, pressed the thought away. Then the waiting room happened. Eli, sitting there, wearing that exact tie. When Luke noticed my glance, he followed it, then smiled politely. "You never told me you knew him." I swallowed. "Just a friend from college." Eli's eyes flicked up. Recognition. Sharp, involuntary. Guilt, almost imperceptible. But there. Luke didn't notice. Not yet. But in that fluorescent silence, I could feel the air thicken, like the moment before a photograph develops, when every truth is about to appear whether you want it to or not. There are moments when time doesn't slow down. It just freezes long enough for you to hear your own pulse ruin everything. The doctor called Luke in first. I stayed behind, pretending to scroll my phone while my heart kept time with the ticking clock. When they came out, Eli was gone, just an empty chair and the faint smell of his cologne lingering like a ghost. In the car, Luke didn't speak. He just drove, eyes fixed on the road, hands too steady on the wheel. It wasn't anger, it was calculation, the silence of someone connecting dots you didn't know existed. Finally, he said, "You look terrified back there." I laughed. Or tried to. I just hate hospitals. And him? What about him? You know him? Someone I used to know, I said, too quickly. "Used to," he repeated, his voice calm in a way that made it worse. When we got home, he didn't say another word. Just hung his jacket, kissed my cheek, and went for a walk. He didn't come back until after midnight. I pretended to be asleep, but I heard the floorboards creak under his pacing. The next morning, he was in the kitchen making coffee. The air smelled like roasted beans and endings. Without looking up, he said, "I emailed Eli." My chest tightened. "Why would you—" I told him it was nice seeing him, asked how he knew you. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. He didn't flinch. He replied. He slid his phone across the counter. The message was polite, careful, except for one word. "It was good seeing both of you again. Didn't realize you were still together." Still. Past tense. That single word screamed louder than any confession I could have rehearsed. Luke's eyes met mine. Calm. Waiting. "Anything you want to explain?" My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Every excuse I'd built suddenly felt too fragile to stand on. You don't confess to clear your conscience. You confess because the lie finally stops fitting in your mouth. Luke moved into the guest room that night. No shouting, no slammed doors, just the quiet sound of a suitcase being zipped. "I need time," he said. The kind of sentence that means don't wait up, don't hope. Days passed in a fog of half-functioning routine. I worked, cooked, folded laundry that wasn't his anymore. Every sound in the flat felt too loud. The kettle, the clock, my own breathing. Guilt has a strange gravity. It pulls you inward, makes even ordinary moments feel like trespassing. A week later, a letter arrived. Misdelivered, addressed to Eli Parker. Wrong apartment number, same street. I should have dropped it back in the post box. But guilt has a way of mistaking curiosity for atonement. I opened it. Inside was a simple card. "In memory of your brother. Deepest condolences from the St. Mary's Clinic staff." I read it again. And again. Brother. Eli Parker. The name echoed in my head until it blurred. My pulse went thin. The man in the waiting room, the one in the tie, hadn't been Eli. It was his twin. Grieving. Sitting in that room, wearing his brother's tie. The same one I'd once straightened before we made a mistake neither of us named. The room spun. My throat burned. I wasn't caught by fate. I was caught by a coincidence so cruel it felt personal. But Luke didn't know that. He still believed what he saw. Believed I'd betrayed him twice. Once in the past, and once in front of him. And how do you explain something that sounds like a lie even when it's true? I folded the letter back into its envelope, smoothed the crease, and sealed it shut. Then I mailed it to the return address. Quiet penance for a story too absurd to speak aloud. The truth was pointless now. It couldn't fix what guilt had already corroded. Because guilt doesn't vanish when coincidence intervenes. It just changes shape, becomes quieter, heavier, less forgivable. Some secrets are too absurd to confess. You just let them live where they already buried you. Weeks passed. The apartment grew quieter, emptier. Luke was still in the guest room, but even his silence started to sound like absence. Then one morning there was a knock on the door. A small envelope, hand-delivered, no return address. Inside, a letter. It was from him, Eli's twin, the man from the waiting room. He thanked me for returning the sympathy card. His handwriting was neat, deliberate. "You must have known him too," he wrote. "I've been trying to reach everyone he was close to. He spoke of a woman named Nina once, said she helped him feel less alone. I read that line over and over until the words stopped meaning anything. He didn't know. He had no idea who I was, what I'd done. To him, I was just another kind face in Eli's orbit. Someone good. I sat on the couch, shaking, letter trembling in my hands. Eli hadn't told his brother we'd slept together. He'd carried that truth quietly, kindly, right up until the end. Default text, and now his brother was thanking me for being kind to him. My shame turned into something colder, heavier, grief I hadn't earned. That night I dreamed of them both. Luke and Eli, sitting across from each other in a waiting room, identical expressions, opposite sides, neither looking at me. When I woke, Luke's door was closed. It stayed that way for weeks. A month later, he moved out. No fight, no final talk, just boxes, zipped bags, and the dull rhythm of a life unshared. He didn't slam doors or shout. He just left the space where love used to live, as if silence could fix what truth never could. The day he left, I folded the twins' letter and placed it beside the burnt edge of the old photo I hadn't thrown away. 2 men, one alive, one gone. Both reminders that sometimes the punishment isn't losing love. It's knowing it once existed and watching it dissolve under the weight of what you couldn't say. When people ask why we ended, I say distance. I just don't mention how short the distance really was. One letter, one tie, one look too long. A few weeks later, another letter arrived. Same handwriting, same careful fold. It was from Eli's twin again. A thank you note this time. "Thank you for donating to the St. Mary's Mental Health Foundation in Eli's name," it read. "He always said you made him feel like there was still time." I never donated. I stared at the words until they blurred. Somehow, even after everything, the universe had found another way to make me part of a story I didn't belong to, another kindness I couldn't claim. I folded the letter and set it beside Luke's old coffee mug, still stained at the rim from mornings that used to mean something. Sometimes betrayal doesn't end with losing someone. It just multiplies the people you owe apologies to. I still pass the doctor's office sometimes. Never go in. Just glance at the door, like maybe the past is still waiting for me in there, under fluorescent light. I cheated on my boyfriend during our break when a friend stayed over. I never said a word about it until he found out at the doctor's office from the tie the guy was wearing. Turns out it wasn't the tie that ruined us. It was that someone else's grief wore my guilt better than I ever could.